Oh, okay. Looks like it's on there. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Hello, Animus Channel. Just taking a sip of something right before I started. Anyhow, so I think maybe I'll just leave my camera off for right now, and then maybe later on turn it on. So I thought I would do a hangout. I changed the time. I usually do these at 7 p.m. And this one I'm doing at 6 p.m. just to see how it works out for other people. Somebody had mentioned doing it earlier, and since I have an opportunity to do it earlier on Wednesdays, I figured I'd go ahead and do it. The Saturday one, I don't think I'll be able to do that earlier. It just won't work into my schedule. It'll be too tight. But Wednesdays, I can definitely do at 6 p.m. So I thought I would be doing a series on what it is like to be an atheist and a pagan, or specifically in my case, an atheist and a Wiccan. Now, the first time that I heard about this, there was a lady that I knew who was, she was a Wiccan priest. She was also in the, well, she still is in the OTO to the best of my knowledge. And she labeled herself as an atheist. And I thought that was intriguing, because this was around the time that I had already started to kind of question a lot of my beliefs. I mean, my beliefs have evolved, and I think that that's just a natural process. You know, we just take in information, and our positions and our opinions change, and that's just it happens. I think that people get caught up in this concept that all people are static. No, people are not static. They're always changing their beliefs and their ideas. They just may not accept it and catch up with the fact. But the truth of the matter is, yes, everyone changes. So if you meet somebody who is a racist or a sexist or a homophobic or whatever, you can change them, and they can change. They're not static. They're not stuck in their ways. That's one of the things that I feel is a destructive and ridiculous portrayal in the what is being called the far left of the social justice warrior sides. Is they perceive everything as static, as in that's the way people are, and the only thing you can do is destroy them. No, it's not the only thing you can do. People change. People have always changed. It is a part of life. And as you mature and as you grow in experience and you meet other people and experience different things, you change. It's just there's no way to avoid it. If you're not changing, then you're lying to yourself. You do change. So I just thought I would talk a little bit about my path to being a atheist pagan, because there's not too many of us out there. I think there's a lot of people who are have various different religious practices and, you know, different forms of it, maybe their own spiritual beliefs that they put together or formulate or whatever. But there's not too many people out there who would call themselves probably an atheist pagan. So, hey, Joan, how you doing? Nice to see you. Thanks for showing up. That video earlier corrected me. Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed making that video. Yeah, that was a fun video to do. You know, so sometimes I just find these little gems, or people will email them to me, and it just works out, you know. And some of them, like, I don't even have to say anything. So, yeah. And yeah, and so I wanted to, I'll probably do like maybe a little mini series or something on how to practice as a Wiccan who's an atheist. And I think also one of the other things is how to practice in a more traditional um, setting as a solitary, because that's one thing that I don't think most people don't quite understand. They have the outer understanding, the Scott Cunningham and the Silver Raven Wolf, and even the Buckland viewpoint of Wicca, but it goes. That's not what I would consider to be traditional Wicca. I would consider all of those to be eclectic Wicca. Traditional Wicca is it's set. It's all there. You don't need to add anything. You don't need to change anything. It's all there. And if you begin to change it, then it becomes eclectic. And then you have different people who have different books, and they slap the label Wicca on it. So it actually it's not the actual representation of what is traditional Wicca, or we in America like to call traditional British Wicca, but it's not. In Britain, they don't call it British traditional Wicca. They just call it, well, Wicca or witchcraft. Those words are very interchangeable. And so if you're a solitary and you practice a traditional form of Wicca, it's nearly impossible, because it is a group practice. You have to have at least 2 or 3 people in a circle to really practice Wicca. And so a lot of people who are solitary and eclectic Wiccans, they're practicing what they're practicing. There's nothing wrong with that, but they're practicing something that's completely different. They're not completely different. It's just slightly different. It's not completely different. Let me see. What else do people say? Yeah, I do find some real winners. Yeah, thanks, Joan. Llewellyn's Finest. Yeah, Llewellyn. I really don't like that publisher. It's funny how Buckland, the source of BTW in USA, can be considered not. So you didn't worship a god or goddess in your practice of Wicca? Hello, everyone. Hey, Mary, how's it going? Yeah, so I'm actually going to get into that, Joan. Yeah, animist. So what happened was Buckland was an initiate of Gardner. And he came to America, and he initiated Monique and Colin Wilson, and then they initiated other people into Wicca. But the books that he wrote on Wicca, again, I keep coming back to this, traditional Wicca, the core rituals, you cannot publish. If you have taken an oath, which obviously Buckland must have, you cannot publish that material. So what happened back in like the 70s is that all of these people who published books on quote unquote Wicca, the ritual formats that they put out there were changed and altered. They weren't the same because they couldn't do it, because it would break their oaths. So you have people like Scott Cunningham and Buckland who are getting these publishing these books to the general public that is called Wicca, but it's not traditional Wicca. So yes, animist, yes, Buckland's books are not traditional Wicca. I know it sounds funny, but you can't. I mean, anybody who does publish their book of shadows that they receive from their high priest or high priestess, that's breaking their oaths, and they can't do that. And that's so all these writers, they if they did publish any of the actual quote unquote Gardnerian material, then they broke their oath. And to me, that's very, very, very bad. Let me see. Maybe a traditional Wicca by the people who are downline from him. I don't get that. Yeah. Okay. So let me see if I'm explaining myself correctly. Okay. So Buckland obviously is an initiate of traditional Wicca. So the books that he wrote, that he published, he could not publish Gardner's material. He just couldn't do that. He would be breaking his oaths if he did that. So he changed the material or made up his own stuff and put it out there. even though it was considered to be traditional Wicca. And Buckland's, especially Buckland's Big Blue Book, actually has a lot of fantastic information in there, which is really good information. But the core rituals could not be published. So there was a lot of information in there, which is very accurate, but there's other information in there which is not the traditional core rituals. Let me see. Okay, thanks for me. That's an interesting idea. Yeah, I'm not Wiccan, but even don't share the content of my view of secrecy is fundamental. Yeah, and I think that that's the other thing is that I mean, a book of shadows. Like one of the things I see on YouTube is people sharing their book of shadows, and if that's what they want to do, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I'm not trying to put people down if they're showing off their book of shadows, but to me, it's something that's very personal. You know, it's something that I just don't share. I don't like if friends come over to my house, I don't go, hey, look at my book of shadows. Here, take a look. You know, I just don't do that. And that's kind of like the same thing that I perceive on YouTube. You're basically you're taking a very intimate part of yourself and you're putting it out there for the entire world. And to me, it loses something in that. So I know people do that, and that's up to them. But for myself personally, no, I wouldn't do it. But that's just because, again, my book of shadows is personal to me. Let me see. We have some chat delay issues. Yeah, the chat has been really wonky today. Like I tried to log on to a couple of channels that were chatting before I started this stream, and I got this error message saying that it couldn't connect to chat. So yeah, there's something going on with it. Sorry about that, Animus. Let me see. What's the topic tonight? Hey, Talon, how's it going? Welcome. Let me see. Oh my God, I laugh when people do that and wonder why there's no Yeah, really. I also never do spell work. Yeah, exactly. I agree with you, Joan. Yeah, that's something I also don't like to do. Is I don't like to do spell work on camera. I think that that's. I mean, I did a ritual for my Beltane script, and then I also did a form of casting the circle on camera, but that was just for educational purposes. But yeah, I wouldn't do spell work on camera. I think that again, that sort of it cheapens it, and it I just don't think it's beneficial. And again, that's something that's very personal to me, and I just wouldn't share it. So Talon, so the topic for this today is, if I ever get around to it, I got sidetracked by other things, is talking about how I practice atheism as a pagan, and specifically how I practice as a Wiccan, being an atheist, because I don't. There's really no videos out there about that, and I'm actually going to be doing a little mini series on that. And I just thought I'd kick it off on my Patreon Hangout. None of my patrons are available to show up, but anyhow, so I just thought I would do a video on what it's like to be an atheist Wiccan and how I approach things. And I'm going to get to that other comment again, like the God and the Goddess. So let's see, so it's different because in shamanism we try to share whatever we can in hopes of passing along tradition without getting our apprentices killed randomly. I agreed. I haven't shared mine. Yeah, Animus. So that's a good point. Now, let me just kind of explain how my position on oaths and traditions. So when I first started to learn about Wicca back in the early 80s, I met a group of people who also practice Wicca, and they had the book by the Farrars, and we practiced right out of that book, and kind of we created our own rituals, and we sort of did create our own coven. And I practiced with this group for a while, and then the high priest and high priestess got into fight or whatever, and they broke up, and so the covenant sort of dissolved from that point. And from that point, which was 1988, I never really had a group. I joined a couple of groups here and there, different groups, but nothing really panned out for me. So I had an understanding of what quote unquote traditional Wicca was, but I was never part of a tradition. So I understood going into it what I was taking on. I was taking on a responsibility. The responsibility was to basically, when you take an oath, is you're taking a promise. Somebody is essentially sharing a secret with you, and you're taking an oath that you are going to respect that secret. So that's how I view it today. My personal opinion is I don't like oaths. I think that I wish that the Gardnerian material was made very public to everybody, and I wish that people were trained properly in how to perform various Wiccan traditions, and I wish a lot of the misconceptions out there would be rectified and understood. But that's not my place to do that. I'm now a responsible member of a particular tradition, and I'm not going to be the one to go against everybody, give them the middle finger, and just reveal all the secrets that I was given, because that's, in my opinion, that's a dick move, and I'm not going to do that. I walked into it understanding that I would be taking an oath, taking a promise, and not breaking that promise, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to break that promise, and I'm not going to break that oath. That's just, you know, even though I don't agree with it. So it's kind of an odd thing. But if you could understand, like, let's say you had a friend who you knew was going to share a very deep and important secret with you, and you went into that relationship understanding that they were going to share that secret with you, and your main job was to hold that secret, and then you turn around and violated it and exposed that secret. I mean, that's not good, you know. I would not respect anybody like Bill Schnoebelen basically has done that, because he was a first-degree Alexandrian. Basically goes on Now You See TV and reveals all this stuff and breaks his oaths. That's pretty disgusting in my book. Let me see. I think there's a trend now on YouTube where people do altar tours. Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing I am going to do. I am going to actually do a how I set up my altar, but from the perspective of like the bare minimum of what you would need to set up an altar. And I haven't forgotten that question about the god and the goddess. So I'm going to get back to that. Actually, yeah, so let me get into that now. So throughout my career, throughout my path as a Wiccan, my god and goddesses have changed, and there's certain ones that I was drawn to, and other ones that I favored over others. As time went on, I started to have a different relationship with the god and the goddess. I began to understand them from a personal perspective, and I see them as parts of myself. And so I began to relate to the gods as not entities outside of myself, but rather within myself and within other people. And that was just kind of like a natural progression of my beliefs and my ideas. Now, when I am in a coven setting, when I'm practicing with other people, they have, like, for example, in traditional Wicca, they have a god and a goddess. So when I'm in a group circle with other people, I understand and I respect those gods and those entities, and I practice with those. In my own personal practice, I do have a god and a goddess statue, but those god and goddess statues represent aspects of myself, not outside of myself. And even when I'm in a group practice, it's not that suddenly now I perceive those gods as being entities that have their own agency, but I do have a understanding that those gods, in that respect, are outside of myself. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but I think I think the easiest way for me to explain it is when I'm by myself and I'm worshiping the god and the goddesses, I'm actually worshiping aspects of myself. When I'm in a group setting, I'm understanding that the group is a greater whole. It's sort of like an example of our personal inner space and then the collective unconscious or the collective consciousness of a group. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Let me see. Nobody but my student is allowed to see my shadows, and even then is only so they can hand a copy of the core. Right, exactly, and that's actually what I did early on. Was I hand copied the I hand copied their rituals from their book of shadows, and I copied them into like a little into a notebook, and then transferred them over into my book of shadows, or my book of shadows at the time. I've done an art studio space tour, but without getting close to things. They are private on shelves. Yeah, exactly. How can you be atheist and Wiccan? I just want to understand because I know you're very intelligent. Well, thank you, Jonah. I appreciate you think I'm intelligent. Yeah, exactly. And I think that is a very good question. So being an atheist and a Wiccan is, first of all, Wicca is a very individualistic path. It is something that, it's personal to you. It's your personal relationship with magic, the universe, and everything in between. So however you find a way to perceive around you in your own personal life is really up to you. I think that is at the core of Wicca. I think that is the core part of Wicca, is to find your own meaning, your own path. So that is essentially what I do, but I approach it from the perspective of that the deities are not outside of myself. They're not entities that have agency outside of myself. And that is still how I perceive it. I still perceive that today. I still perceive that the gods and the goddesses dwell within me, not outside of me. Now, I understand that this is a minority opinion, and the majority of the people perceive, I don't know. It's just, I understand that that's my personal opinion, and I'm willing to, accept that I don't know any better. That's just how I perceive it. But, if I ever saw evidence contrary to that, like if the god and the goddess actually came down and appeared before me in a physical form, then maybe I'd change my mind. I would like to see a video on your altar. Well, shoot. You've seen, okay. Yeah, I'm actually going to be doing a video on that. But I'm going to be doing a video on how to set up an altar using the very most basic things of traditional Wicca. Now, the traditional Wicca, there's a book by the Farrars, Janet and Stuart Farrar, which I would be using to reference it, because I feel that they stay very true to the core rituals. There was actually a lot of controversy when they printed their books. A lot of people felt that they had violated their oaths because they revealed a lot of information. However, on the other hand, they were working very closely with Dorian Valiente, who had worked on, now this is just Wiccan nerd stuff, so I apologize. But when it got to Gardner's Book of Shadows, went through 4 major developments, what they call Text A, Text B, Text C, and Text D. Text D is the one that Dorian Valiente had the most influence on. So she actually created a lot of that particular Book of Shadows of Gerald Gardner's. So it was pretty much her material as much as it was Gardner's. So when Janet and Stuart Farrar wanted to release printed material from quote unquote traditional Wicca, they used Text D, which was very much Dorian Valiente's influence. So again, when you're looking at the Book of Shadows, it's like there's which Book of Shadows are you looking at? Text A, Text B, Text C, or Text D? In this particular case with the Farrars, it was Text D. So yeah, so that material was printed. Now that's not me. That's not my oaths. I didn't break anything. You know, but that's what they released, and they, you know, because Dorian Valiente had so much influence in it, Dorian Valiente gave them permission and said basically, yeah, I mean, I wrote most of that, so yeah, go ahead and publish it. Let me see. I would like to see a video on your altar. It's archetypes mindset. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly, Animus. You got it. Tempted to recruit some fairies to mess with you. Tempted to recruit some fairies to mess with you. Do you mean the she? People love to call fairies the fairies, and that's fine. But fairies are basically, in my opinion, those are the she. And yeah, if you want to invoke the she, go ahead. Go for it. Good luck. Not against me. I happen to have a banshee. There's only certain families in Ireland that have a banshee. Let me see. Wiccan nerd stuff. Exactly, Wiccan nerd stuff. I love Wiccan nerd stuff. Fairies wear boots. Now you gotta believe me. Exactly, the she. Yeah, S-I-D-H-E, she. Yeah, and then banshee, which is B-A-N-S-I-D-H-E. Yeah, exactly, banshee. Yeah, and so it's interesting, the legend of the banshee. They only are supposed to, quote unquote, supposed to cry and watch out for certain families who supposedly have, you know, like, you know, true Irish roots or whatever. And when someone is about to die in their family, they wail and you hear the cry of the banshee. But yeah. So yeah, so I don't, yeah, I mean, that's one thing is I do believe in the she. I do. That's one of the things I do believe in. I don't believe in demons, and I don't believe in devils, and I don't believe in gods, but I do believe in the she. Let me see. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to talk about was how I am an atheist Wiccan and what it's like. I think that there's not too many people on YouTube who would like to admit that. And then I get some people who like ask me like, well, how can you be an atheist Wiccan, and how, you know, how can you believe in magic and all this stuff and you know, still be an atheist? I see skepticism and atheism as two separate things. There's a certain point that I have to understand that outside of my realm of knowledge, I have no experience with. I mean, our knowledge is based upon our experience, what we've had experience with. If you've never had any experience with anything outside of your realm of knowledge, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means you haven't had any experience with it. So that's how I view a lot of things. I've never had any experience with it, so in my opinion, it doesn't exist. You know, if I'm ever shown information to the contrary, then obviously I'll change my opinion. Let me see. Yes, there are natural, minor, fae, image, whatever. Yeah, fae who are a whole different thing going on. They can be a pain. Fae. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes. Fae. Fae. F-E-Y. F-A-Y. F-A. Yeah. Fae. Fae. I'm going to call them she, and that's what I'll call them. But yeah, fae. Yeah. A lot of people are very much into the into the fae. Um, it's I don't know. It's cute. I think it's cute. It's a cute way of saying it. But yeah. Elementals, sylphs, sirens, nymphs, elves, gnomes, fairies. Yeah, yeah. Elementals. Yeah. So if you're thinking of like elemental, yeah, exactly. Yeah, those things. Um, Sylphs, sirens, nymphs, elves, gnomes, fairies. Um, yeah, I would consider all of those fairies, the sylphs, sirens, nymphs, elves, and gnomes, to be fairies. Elementals, it really depends kind of how you view the elementals. If you view them as the alchemical elements, or if you view them as elements of actual, like the elements themselves, or if you perceive the spirit of the element. I mean, there's actually different ways of looking at that. I would not say that uh, the she or the fairies would be elementals. I don't. I wouldn't perceive them that way. Um, but there are, like, for example, sylphs would be associated with air, gnomes with earth, salamanders with fire, and then the nereids or nymphs with water. So yeah, I mean it's different ways of perceiving the spirit or the entity or the essence of those various things. Yeah, yeah. Um, Nymphs are earth force elementals. Oh, okay. Yeah, near what was oh yeah, Nereids and Undines. Those were the ones who were water. And I work with elementals as separate from the shy because they have direct effects, science, reality. Hey, Lady Ambrosia, how you doing? Because they have direct effects in science, reality. Yeah, I mean it's interesting. In alchemy, they call the elementals by the names by like gnomes, sylphs, undines, I think, and salamanders. That's how that's what they call the spirits of the elements. Undines and dice, undines and sirens. Now you see that's interesting because I wouldn't necessarily consider a siren an elemental or a fae or she because the siren is. I mean, I just wouldn't consider it because the siren is from mythology, and they would lure people from boats into rocks, and but I wouldn't call them all elementals or spirits or fae, but that's just me. I don't know how to spell shit in Gaelic. Oh, that's okay. It's she is spelled Sidhe. I'm just here listening in, decorating a new wreath like the suburban queen. Sirens are ocean fae. They lure mortals to death. Yeah, sure. Let me see. Yeah. So I mean that's one of the things of I mean Joan, I'd actually really be interested to find out the history of that. If you ever do a video on the history of sirens being part of the Fae, I'd love to find out more about that. But yeah, it's interesting the way everybody has a different opinion about things, and I mean it's interesting, different. We all have we all have so many different opinions about things. I don't think there's anything right or wrong about anything. I think that it's just I think there's information out there which is not correct. I don't know. What's the most politically correct way I can say it? Information which is Yeah, information which is not correct, I think, is the best way to describe it. And then there's information out there which is correct. And it's really hard to find kind of what is correct and what's incorrect, because sometimes it gets perpetuated so much. I mean, I think it would be interesting to find a mythology, a story where they talk about sirens and being part of the Fae. I think maybe that would probably be the best. Um, yeah, because I know, I mean, I'd love to learn more about that, because I I don't think of them that way, but I could be completely wrong. But yeah, so it'd be interesting to find out more about that, definitely. If you ever do a video on it, let me know, Joan. Let me see. Okay, you got it. Oh, cool. Thanks, Joan. We all perceive the same things. And yeah, exactly. We all have a different perception of things. And sylphs are where it's at. Yes, sylphs. Yeah. There's a guy. What is his name? Evan Waits, who did a great book on fairies, especially Irish fairies, and also I think he talks a little bit about French fairies too. But it's a fairy faith in Celtic countries, and that's a great book. He goes into a lot of research. He goes and he talks with a lot of Shaughnesses, who are like old storytellers from Ireland, who have stories about the old gods and heroes and heroines and the fairies and all the stuff from Ireland. And he compiled a lot of this book and put it out there. And there's a lot of great stories in that book about how they would protect children from fairies, and how they would put out milk and honey to give homage to the fairies, and how there are certain fairies that are associated with certain families, and also talks about the various hierarchy of fairies and how their mounds are and how their worlds are, because there's all kinds of stories about people who go into the land of fairy, and you're not supposed to eat from the land of fairy, because if you do, you'll be stuck there. But like, they'll go in and be there for an entire year and fight battles with them and everything like that, and then they'll come back into the real world, and like minutes have just passed, or it would be centuries. So they would like go in to a fairy mount, spend like a little bit of time there, eat some food, come back out, and like 500 years has passed in our time. So it's really fascinating. So what was his name? I think it was Evan Waits, but the book is called Fairy Faith in Celtic Countries, and it's a very good book. All parts of the earth as a planet, different types for different areas. I have a lot of books on Irish mythology I can look for. Yeah, I can't remember that. I think it was Evan Waits. I could be wrong, but let me know if you find that book, Mary. I'd appreciate that. They have different bodies that don't age the same rate as humans do. Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, so one of the things that I think that people have the question with me the most is about how can I be an atheist and believe in magic? Because obviously, yes, I definitely do believe in magic. And this is one of the things that I think the most people who I encounter outside of the pagan community have the hardest time with. They don't understand magic. They think that when we work magic, somehow we poof, like cause something to suddenly come into existence, like Harry Potter. And obviously, it just doesn't happen that way. We don't create atoms and something pops into existence. It just doesn't happen that way. Things do exist, and all we do is we influence outcomes of things. It's like playing with loaded dice of the universe. I think that's one of the best ways to describe it, is you're playing with loaded dice of the universe. And you are just able to influence and cause things to happen to your will, to your benefit, or, you know, to someone else's detriment, or for whatever. But you don't cause anything to happen that would not naturally happen. At least that's been my experience. If other people have been able to manifest something out of nothingness, then that's fantastic. I've never been able to do it. And anyone who does, I think, is definitely a fantastic and awesome magician. But I've never seen anything like that happen in my entire life. Let me see. I went to the land of Fae and totally drank the Kool-Aid. It's hard to speak. I like that. I like that, Animist. There was a race of child-sized blue-skinned fairies who lived underground that may have mixed up with E.T., little blue-green men, and most popular folk. Nice. Okay. Awesome. Let me see. Like changing probability. Exactly, David. Like changing probability. Atheism and magic are not contradictory. Magic is a function of emergent properties and the entanglement of complex, dynamic, interactive systems. This is also true in shamanism. Yeah, and yeah. So it's like the experiences that I've had with magic have always been something that happened that I wanted to happen. You know, it's not like I manifested, brought something into existence that didn't already exist. I mean, I've talked before in my videos about a chain of causation, you know, and if you like see how something has happened in your favor through magic, and then you sort of like you go along the chain of causation, you'll get to a certain point where, you know, you just can't explore the chain anymore. But you can actually see how the chain of events happened to cause what you wanted to happen. And I think that's one of the most interesting things about magic. And I also, speaking of books of shadows, I also have a magical journal, which is separate from a book of shadows. But a magical journal is great for this, because what you can do is you can have the top portion of it, you know, the usual stuff like what day, what time you did it, what the weather was like, what, you know, incense you were burning, what direction, or whatever you were working with, all of the various things. And then what you actually did for the ritual, and then leave a space down at the bottom open. And what you can do is later on, when you see the chain, the chain of causation that caused whatever you wanted to happen, write that in your notebook, so that you can sort of write down the extent of your chain of causation that you understand, or other notes about it, which is really interesting. This is an interesting topic. I have an atheist in our group, Coven, locally, and basically she refuses to call in entities when it comes to that part of the ritual, but otherwise she participates. Really, that's interesting, Mary. I mean, when I was in a group, I didn't mind calling. I don't think we called deities. Oh yeah, we did. Yeah. I mean, I didn't have a problem with it, and I still don't have a problem with it. I mean, I could, I think that you can perceive it instead of calling down from, instead of invoking a deity, you would sort of evoke it. So you would bring it outside of yours. Excuse me, am I saying that right? Instead of evoking deity, you would invoke deity. So you would bring deity from within yourself instead of calling it down. But yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what you're talking about, Mary. If you're talking about like drawing down, then yeah, because that was what tripped me up too. Soul spirit, get that. She is silent for that part. Oh, okay. So she almost like does it out of protest. Well, I think that's unnecessary. I mean, that's just unnecessary. I mean, I think you can still play along. You don't have to sit there and be silent about it. But I mean, if that's her choice, if that's what she wants to do, she can do that. But I mean, I for one, I wouldn't be silent about that, because as an atheist, it doesn't matter. I could sit there and invoke Jesus. It doesn't matter, you know. I think I would get some funny looks in circle if I invoke Jesus. But I mean, I can. What I'm saying is, it doesn't matter. I could, you know, invoke licorice or invoke a fire engine. It doesn't matter, you know, because it's the same meaning to me. You know, and also I understand that when I'm working with a group, I'm part of that group. We all just play along, let her do her thing. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I mean, if she really wants to if she wants to be silent for that part, then she can. But you know, I mean, but I don't know how you feel about that, Mary. But for me, for myself, I understand that once I enter a group, I'm now part of a group. And essentially, if you're going to be in a group, you want to be in a group where you feel comfortable with everybody and everybody feels comfortable with you, and you're respectful to other people. And you also understand that you are building a collective energy. It's no longer just your energy. It is now collective energy. And you want to be able to have that resonate and be accepting of other people, you know? Invocation is designed to have an effect on you personally, while an evocation is designed to have an outward effect beyond your own body. Invocation is designed to have an effect on your personality. Oh, wait, no. Invocation is designed to have an effect on you personally, while an evocation is designed to have an outward effect beyond your own body. Why am I not understanding that? Invocation is designed to have an effect on you personally. Okay. So it has an effect on you personally. While an evocation is designed to have an outward effect beyond. Okay, I have no, for some reason, I just can't quite grasp that. Let me see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a dictionary. The Oxford English Dictionary. Erg. I don't want to sign in. Invocation. Invocation. The action of invoking something or someone for assistance or as an authority. The summoning of a deity or the supernatural. An incantation used for this. So an invocation is an action of invoking something or someone for assistance or as an authority. The summoning of a deity or the supernatural. So it sounds kind of like what you said. And evocation, I'm not even going to get into evocation, or what's the other one? There's another one for it. Evocation, the act or fact of evoking, summoning, such as the summoning of a spirit, imaginative creation, and evocation of the past. Oxford English Dictionary. Evocation, here we go. The act of bringing or recalling a feeling, memory, or image to the conscious mind. An account or work of an art that brings or recalls a feeling, memory, or image to the conscious mind. The action of eliciting a response. The action of invoking the spirit or deity. Now they're saying, okay, so now they're saying invoking. So my understanding of an invocation is that you're bringing something in towards yourself, and evocation is something that you're bringing outside of yourself. So I think that's what you said, right, Joan? Let me see. What are your emergent properties? What? Why did I lose it? Okay, so you said invocation is designed to have an effect on you personally. Okay. While an evocation is designed to have an outward effect. Yeah, right. So I think that's, yeah, right. So I think that's, you word it differently than I would. I see an invocation as an inward, bringing something into you, and an evocation is bringing something that is outside of you. You see, nice definition, John. Yes. I'm currently shaving my legs now while listening. This definitely makes a tedious chore. Great. Now I have an image of Lady Ambrosia shaving her legs. Thanks, Lady Ambrosia. I'll have to take a cold shower after this. I absolutely agree. I also feel that names and certain words have power. So how does that affect us as a group when one person does not participate? Yeah, and I mean, like I said, you have to. You're part of a group, and so you want to act accordingly. You know. So yeah. When one invokes, he calls in or summons a form of universal energy into himself or the ceremonial circle with the witch. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, John. I think what it was for some reason, the way that you wrote it, for some reason, my brain just wasn't, for some reason, just wasn't taking in that information. Sometimes I get tripped up on sentences. Invocation for me, when you call the gods within yourself, and evocation is calling them around. Yes, exactly. Yes. Miss Oddity, that is my definition too. Yes. When one evokes and calls something forth, often forcibly, this is the form of magic in such books as the Clavicle Salamanus, the Key of Solomon, the Black Pullet, the Grand Grimoire, and the Red Dragon. Right. Yes, exactly. Ooh, using the fancy names for it. You don't want to say the Picatrix? Evoke has been so muddled by various systems it is like pure chaos. In shamanism, we tend to call the person. Yeah, exactly. I agree with you, Adams. I think we can get trapped up in language and forget the whole purpose of it and the purpose and the concept of it, rather than the semantics of it. Yeah, I agree with you. Because there is, because what is there? There's evocation, there's evocation, and there's convocation. It's just all kinds of various things. But yeah, the way I perceived it was an invocation is bringing something into yourself. An evocation is bringing something outside of yourself, and a convocation is just bringing something to form. Like you're actually conjuring it into form. I have lots of tricks in my bag. Yes, right, exactly. The Grand Grimoire. So which one, Joan, is the Grand Grimoire? And the Red Dragon, which one is the Red Dragon? Because the Key of Solomon, I understand that. I think he means Key of Solomon 1 and 2. And then the Black Pullet, which I believe is the Picatrix, right? Let me see. So yeah, I got about 10 minutes left. So I'm going to be doing a video on how I practice an atheistic form of Wicca, and we'll see how many hate comments I get and how many thumbs down I get. All black ceremony texts. All black ceremonial texts. Which one is all black ceremonial texts? The Grand Grimoire? Left not bring on hate. Yeah, really, exactly. Bring on the hate. Yeah. No, I mean it's funny. You know, I think one of the great things about paganism and the polytheistic people is that we tend to be so much more accepting of other people, you know, whatever their beliefs might be. We just seem to have a much higher tolerance level, you know, whereas there's other religions, mainly the big two, really. I think Judaism is pretty accepting, but although you can get some pretty hardcore people who practice Judaism out there. But for the most part, Christianity, Islam, Judaism are not as accepting, I believe, as in most earth-based pagan faiths. We see, i.e., I carry bear spirit as an invocation of the guardian spirit, which is good for everybody most of the time, but I have to evoke the bear spirit to solve a problem. Everyone better move TF back. Move the fuck back. Oh, okay, yeah. Clavicle Salamis, the Key of Solomon, the Black Pullet, the Grand Grim, and the Red Dragon are all considered essential reading for ceremonial magicians with definite lean towards the left-hand path. Right, yeah, Joan, but what I was asking was, what was the other names of them? Like the Black Pullet, I believe, is the Picatrix, but I'm not familiar with the name of the because each one of these books usually have different names to them. So I'm just wondering which one is the Grand Grimoire and the Red Dragon. So you're about to push some buttons, my friend. Let me go for it. No, hey, Thorn Witch. No, I don't think I'll be pushing people's buttons. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, people allow themselves. If people get upset about stuff, yeah, they allow somebody to push their buttons. Yeah, thanks, Thorn Witch. That's what I thought. Yeah, the Black Bullet is the Picatrix. I don't know. I read the Picatrix. I wasn't all that excited about it. It's an okay book, but I mean, the information that's in the Picatrix you can find in the 3 books of occult philosophy, anyhow. So, but I am interested in those other 2, the Red Dragon and the what was it, the Grand Grimoire. I like the names of some ceremonial magic books. The Grand Grimoire, the Red Dragon. These are the dark, super, super dark left-hand path. Picatrix is a work on its own. It's ain't management and not left-hand path. It's an atypical system for sure, as you have read it. Yeah, really. But yeah, I mean, it's also in the magic, not left-hand path. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just some of the stuff they have in there, they just use animal parts, and I just, I don't know. It wasn't an exciting read for me. Let's put it that way. I mean, it's kind of interesting historically, but I don't know. I didn't really find too much into it. I mean, for reading ancient texts, I felt like the Greek papyri was much more interesting because there's just like there's a lot of information in there, and you then especially the Greek papyri, which is actually many various different Greek papyries. It's not just one, but there's a lot of mix between religion and magic, which I think that a lot of people get stumbled on when they talk about, magic and religion are 2 separate things. Well, I guess they are today, but a long time ago they were not really all that different. I like its planetary workings, how it works the way of the moon rather than the sun. Yeah, and it's interesting. The Key of Solomon actually puts a lot of emphasis on the moon too, which is interesting. Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. There's different. By the way, tonight was such a pagan geek out. Best time we've had for a while. A pagan geek out. I like that, a pagan geek out. So I'll be doing a little, maybe a mini series or something on atheistic Wicca. I think maybe people would be interested in that, and see how that goes. I have so many videos I want to do. I keep making folders of videos that I'm going to do, and I get like ideas, and I put the ideas in the folder, and then I actually don't get around to filming them. I mean, creativity is great, but you got to be able to focus in on creativity and be down to earth about it too. Let me see. Grimoire Encyclopedia website has other names for the text. Yeah, what would be the Grand Grimoire? The Grand Grimoire. I think the Red Dragon is actually part of Swedish magic. I think I did a video recently on that. The There's a name for it in German. Kendra probably knows the name of it, but it's in Swedish, and it basically means the same thing. It means red. No, that one's red leather. That's right. It's red leather and gray leather. Those are two Icelandic magical books. So yeah, no, it's not the Red Dragon. Never mind. Black Pullet. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, that's a Black Pullet. I'm curious about atheist. Like it works. Sounds like a contradiction. I'll have to learn from you. Yeah, right. Well, I think to some people it is a contradiction, Kendra. I think to some people it is. But like I was saying earlier, it's the way that I perceive deity. I don't perceive deity outside of myself. I also understand I'm probably an oddball out because I don't believe in, spirits. I don't believe in evil spirits, and I don't believe in good spirits. And I understand that that's contradictory to what a lot of other people believe. But that's just been my experience. That's how I perceive it. Secrets of Solomon, the Clavicle Solomon, or the Secrets of Solomon. Oh, okay. So is it part of the greater key, of the lesser key? The lesser key, is it the Ars Paulina, the Ars Almaden? Is it one of those? Because I know the Clavicle Solomonus is what, book 2 or book 1 or book 1 and 2. And there's a lesser key of Solomon, the greater key of Solomon. Yeah, that's what I had written the Beltane script. If you ever go back, or if you ever go to my website, you can actually download it. But I actually did a ritual based on the key of Solomon. Wrote out a ritual format from the key of Solomon. And it's really interesting to look at that format. If you look at the ritual format of the key from the key of Solomon, and then you compare it to traditional Wicca texts, you see the similarities. Oh, the Grand Grimoire is also called the Red Dragon. Oh, okay. Oh, I'll have to look it up. I've never heard of the Grand Dragon. The Grand Grimoire. So I'll have to look that up. No, it's just there's different names for some books. Like, some books have 2 different names. But anyhow, I was just going to go for an hour. It's 7 p.m. now, so I think I'm going to end this broadcast. But thank you all for coming and hanging out with me. This was fun. This was a Patreon hangout, so I invited my Patreons, but, I think they probably have other stuff to do. So I appreciate you guys keeping me company. It was fun. Solomon. Oh yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the Lemegeton Clavicle Solomonus. Yeah, the one that has the Goetia, the Thuringia Goetia, Ars Almaden, Ars Paulina, and then there's one more because there's 5 books: Ars Paulina, Ars Almaden, Ars Nova. Yes, the Ars Nova. So yeah, so this was interesting. Thanks all. I had a great time. Always fun to learn new information, Joan. So thank you for letting me know about those books. Kendra, thanks for showing up. Animus Channel, thanks. Mary, thank you. And let me see who else was here. And Miss Oddity, thank you, Miss Oddity. Lady Ambrosia, always a pleasure. And David, thank you, David, for showing up. So, all righty, all. Have a good night, and I will see you on Saturday. Blessed be.